In this session, we are going to focus on the IFT paper which is due on uh, the coming Sunday, and we will see as to how to prepare and what to prepare for this paper. So this is Ajay Ziner here from Career Launcher Tambram and OMR, taking you through this session. So let's first of all look at the IFT paper and its cutoffs for the last 3 to 4 years. And one thing that you will see is in out of these 4 years, in 3 of the years, the cutoff has hovered around 47 to 48.5. And there was just 1 year in which, in between, where it went at 38.5. In fact, in the year 2012, the cutoff had gone at 50, which was the highest ever. So paper more or less has been same for the last 2 years. And if you see the QA cutoff went at somewhere about 4 to 5, the LRDA cutoff was between 8 and 9, and the VRC between 8.5 and 10. And the GK cutoff last year went at 2. The year before that was pretty low at 0.82, and overall it was 48.5. Now, this particular paper uh, is not very easy to do for people who are doing this for the first time. So it requires a bit of familiarization. It requires a good amount of preparation, and I would suggest all of you to do at least 4 to 5 mocks before you go for the IFT examination on 3rd of December, right? So let's go on and see as to what you need to prepare and what you need to look at when you're doing your IFT papers. One of the most important thing about IFT is that you don't have a sectional cutoff time for any of the sections here. So you have 2 hours paper which has got so many sections, 4 sections majorly, and then you also have subsections under it. And then you have paper which comes with very difficulty levels. So it is not an easy task by any means to do this paper, because unless and until you very clearly decide and are disciplined about the timing, uh, it may happen that you would have spent a lot of time in one of the section and you fall short of the cutoff in one of the sections. So it has happened to many students who have been taking the paper. But if you practice this paper with a set timing, it would be easy for you to crack the paper when you encounter it. So my suggestion would be, when you're doing your practice test, start off with the GK section, give about 10 to 12 minutes to GK, wind up the GK, make sure that you clear at least the cutoff of the previous year. So highest cutoff ever for GK was 2.5. So you can make sure that you do about somewhere about 5 to 8 questions and clear this GK cutoff. I would also suggest not to do any kind of random marking on GK, because we have encountered situations where people have marked a lot of questions thinking that it may go right, and finally they ended up with not clearing the cutoff of GK. So make sure that you answer only those questions that you know, and you can take some intelligent guess in 1 or 2 questions, and stick to the time limit, and make sure that in those 10 to 12 minutes that you have in hand, you are surely going to clear the GK cutoff. After the GK part, spend about 30 minutes equally on VRC, QA, LRDI, in whichever order you want. Make sure that you go through and try to finish the paper wherever it is possible, and spend the last 18 to 20 minutes that you have in hand in doing a section where you think you can maximize your score. So by then you would have already seen all these sections. The entire paper was in front of you for 1 hour and 40 minutes. So the last 20 minutes should be just spent on going to those questions which you think can be done, and irrespective of which sections they are in, and maximizing the entire overall score of the paper. Now, how do you go about preparing? I would suggest you all to do a mock every day till Friday. So start off tomorrow with a mock. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got 4 days to go, and it would be a good idea to do the mock during the time when you are going to take the paper. That is the morning slot, and it is also a good idea to do your previous year papers as a mock, because you know the cutoff of the previous year paper, and you know what exactly needs to be done to clear the clear through the written stage and get to the interview stage. So you know the sectional cutoffs. We have already discussed the sectional cutoffs, so it would be easier for you to push yourself towards a target if you know what the target is. So I would suggest you to pick up the previous years, at least the previous 3 years paper, do them, keep the sectional timing and the sectional scores in mind. Make sure that you clear all the sectional scores, the cutoffs, and the overall cutoff of the paper. So that is what you are pushing yourself to in each of these three mocks, three papers, previous year papers. You can also do one or two mocks which are available to you from Career Launcher, and that should be enough to go prepared for the paper. Now, if you look at the entire paper, there are, so I've been receiving queries in the last 1 or 2 days, people asking me what to prepare for GK, and people trying to maximize on GK. I think it's not a good idea to do that unless and until you're already prepared for GK. Because nobody can tell you what will come in GK. GK is a vast area. You may have studied a lot of things, but for all you know, the paper would have thrown up completely something new to you. So I don't think it's worthwhile spending undue time on GK and preparing just GK without paying heed to how the cutoffs were and how the rest of the paper is. I'm definitely sure that GK is not going to help you clear the cutoff. It is only going to give you a bonus marks in terms of maximizing your score. So your task first of all in hand is to clear the cutoff, and GK definitely is not going to be a game changer from that point of view. Now, what do I prepare for GK? If you look at the previous 8-10 years paper, you would realize that there are certain very standard things which just come in the paper. So, United Nations organizations, their head office, general secretaries. There are questions regarding other organizations as well. So, NATO, APEC, you got the SARC, the European Union. So, it'll be a good idea to go through these because these are easy reads. Some of the few books and authors, although it's quite a vast area, but then probably you can browse through the famous books, the authors, Booker Prize winners in the last 2-3 years, literature awards in the last 2-3 years, current year Nobel Prize winners and Indian Nobel Prize winners, because there has been years when the Indian Nobel Prize winners related questions have come. Run through the currencies of all the countries, capitals of all the countries, some of the major famous leaders. If you can just glance through the inventions or and also the longest, shortest in terms of rivers, mountains, ranges, or ocean and sea. So if you see these are all static GK. Pick up your packet number 3 and take out a static GK book and just run through it every day. Probably spend a few minutes in the morning, afternoon, evening, just going through that book, some of these areas which you will be touching on. You can also look at various terrains in terms of the geography. You can go through and read a bit about Olympics. You can go through the politics and the polity of the state in terms of who is the chief ministers and governors and so on and so forth. Little bit on the languages in India, the culture in terms of dances, festivals, India's political map. There are a lot of India-related information available in books like Malayalam Manorama yearbook or the Competition Success Review. You can go through all this, and you can also read through the Reserve Bank of India, a bit about Indian history, and White Revolution, Green Revolution, the WTO, India Space Program, so on and so forth. So basically go through the papers for the last 5 years, figure out what is common. These are some of the things that I saw and I picked up from the papers. You can probably have a look at some of these things and go. It can be just a scan of all these things because you can't mug all these things up, so it's not worthwhile spending time on mugging it up because you don't even know if something will repeat from this. But then it's a good idea to scan through so that when you see the options you can mark them and go ahead. In current affairs, it will be a good idea to start off with from November 2016 onwards to October 2017. Go through all the sports activities that was there for the year, the awards last year, major government project schemes which were launched, India's space launches if any, people in news, book in news, mergers, acquisitions, business news, latest product launches, CEOs in news, trade figures, imports, exports, so on and so forth. So the easiest way to prepare for this entire thing would be to go through your compendium for IFT, which is available on your SIS login. Open it up and go through that every day. So there's a lot of whatever has been mentioned here available in your SIS login itself. You also have the news of the day, which you can quickly read through for each of the days, but then you don't have time to complete the entire thing. but then you can still try to. And it will be a good idea for the next 5 6 days to do a few quizzes, and every day attempt few GK quizzes online, either using our quiz of the week or GK quiz of the week, or from whichever source you can find a quiz. So GK, that should be more or less about GK. Um, Now moving on, when you're looking at the previous year's papers, one thing that you should definitely look at is the verbal ability part of the past 5 years papers, because if you look at the verbal ability part, unlike your CAT paper or any other paper, there are few sections and questions which you will see in these papers which are very easy to, but which doesn't figure in the other papers. So just to give you a few examples, last year's paper had origin on or sources of words. There are common French, Italian, Greek and Latin roots which I asked earlier. The vocabulary anyway, you would have prepared for the NMAT paper. So vocabulary, you have idioms which are asked, you have oxymorons, similes, and other figures of speech which are asked, and parajumble which is there. So these are some of the things which are different in the IFT paper as compared to the CAT paper. So I would suggest that you spend a bit of time on this, because these are areas where you can score really easily. You will be spending very less time in the verbal ability section, and these are questions where you don't really need to spend a lot of time, and hence you save time as well as increase your score. So go through, and if possible, go through some of these things. Make sure that you read through some of these differentiation between various figures of speech, the oxymoron, the similes, etc. Go through some of those French, Italian, Greek root words which are aware, which you would have come across, or which you can find in some of the books like Norman Lewis. So it will be a good idea doing that. The RC section of IFT is a very easy section. This section, if you go through the previous year's paper, you'll find that most of the RCs aren't that tough to read. The reading comprehensions are easy, and the questions are very direct, most of them. So it's a good idea to scan the RC and then go to the factual question and check the question and then get back to the passage. So I think, and it requires a lot of practice before you can do that. So while you're doing the last 3-4 years papers, try to practice that in the RCs that you're doing, or the RC section of those IFT papers. Also, one of the places where people find difficulty in terms of doing questions in IFT are the DIs, which are calculation intensive. Most of the DIs aren't that calculation intensive in the IFT. It looks calculation intensive. So you can go through the paper, do all the questions after completing the test, to make sure that you don't leave any DIs out without attempting them or analyzing them after the test is over. So a good idea would be to attempt and do DIs with approximation. And you'll see a lot of questions can be done using approximation in the IFT paper. And if you practice that in the next 3-4 papers that you're doing, you'll find it easy going when you sit for the actual examination. So pick up the DI sections, do them in the as a mock paper, and then after the mock is over, sit down and check out all those sets that you couldn't do or you didn't attempt, and try to figure out whether they were easy sets or difficult sets. It would, and also try to do them using approximation. So it'll give you a lot of confidence going into the exam that the DIs are doable. Otherwise, first look, the DI looks tough, and the DI looks very calculation intensive, because of which most of the people leave DIs without attempting them. So those were basically the things that I wanted to talk to you about as I was getting a lot of calls from students. The QA section and the LR section, there is nothing much that I can tell you about, because the QA section is pretty much simple, and all of you would have prepared for the CAT examination already, would find it easy going to do the paper. Pick up the easy questions as arithmetic heavy paper. So pick up the questions and try doing the QA part by picking and choosing the questions and making sure that you maximize your score there. In the LR part, you will definitely come across few sets which are unfamiliar. There are kind of LRs which are not there in the CAT paper. So there are series question, analogy questions which figure out in sometimes figures in the IFT LR part.
Go through the last 3-4 years paper. Make sure that you are familiar with the kind of sets which are given there. If you're not familiar with some of those sets, make sure that you pick up a question bank and do those questions. So a good idea would be to go through our sectional tests which are given in the SIS login for IFT and do the LR sectional test there. So go with a good amount of preparation, and IFT preparation requires you to do the previous year's papers or at least mock papers given by the CL. It would be really difficult if you don't do the papers and go for the exam. So make sure that you know what to attempt, you know what to expect in the paper, and you know how much time you're going to spend on each of these sections while doing the paper finally.
So if you have any queries, you can contact me on my WhatsApp number, which is 8144842221, or email me at ajayzindra@gmail.com, or you can even call us at 9282442221. You can also visit our Career Launcher Tambram page, which is www.facebook.com/Career Launcher Tambram, and post your queries there as well. So thank you very much, and all the best for your IFT exam.